A senior Thai army general is among dozens of people who have been arrested as part of the country's crackdown on human trafficking. He, along with other suspects, some of whom are military officers, appeared in court on Tuesday.
And over the weekend, a police officer in charge of the investigation resigned, saying he feared for his life. The crackdown began in May, and while it's led to dozens of arrests, it's also resulted in smugglers abandoning thousands of migrants on land and at sea. And on the other side of the globe, just a 2-hour drive from Mexico City is a small town carrying a big and dangerous distinction.
It is said to be the epicenter of an international crime syndicate trafficking in women and girls. So the CNN Freedom Project travelled to central Mexico. CNN senior Latin American Affairs editor Rafael Romo is here with more. What did you find?
Michael and Amara, we wanted to find out for ourselves what both Mexican and U.S. officials had already told us. Tenancingo is a town that raises pimps, and human trafficking is its industry. Once we got there, it didn't take long for us to realize asking tough questions in Tenancingo can be very dangerous. A traditional feast honoring Saint Michael the Archangel. Catholic teaching says Saint Michael led heaven's forces in a war against evil. But here in Tenancingo, Mexico, anti-trafficking groups say he goes by a different name. They call him the patron saint of pimping.
I remember that I asked my mother for permission to go to the fair the day before.
Estrella was 14 years old when she and her cousin were kidnapped, leaving a town fair. They were drugged and taken to a place many anti-slavery activists have called the sex trafficking capital of the world.
I would cry every day. I would beg that woman to let me go. It was nauseating for me to be taken to a bar to sleep with 20 to 30 men every day. They were young and old, even elderly, and we couldn't complain at all.
From afar, Mexico's Tenancingo village appears quaint, even serene.
This is really the place where you can see slavery in the worst of the story.
Rosy Orozco, head of Mexico's Special Committee to Combat Trafficking in Persons, says just how the religious teachings became so corrupted goes back decades, with fathers teaching sons and uncles teaching nephews.
They know how to teach them to end in 5 minutes. So they will be with 20 men in a home and then in another place with 10, and at the end of the day, 60 times a day, they say.
Authorities say Tenancingo is the start of a pipeline of forced prostitution, the headquarters of a vast criminal enterprise stretching across Mexico and the United States. Matilde, now in hiding in the United States, was one of hundreds of victims forced to provide sex to dozens of men each day.
He told me he's sending me to the U.S. because he can make twice as much.
Susan Coppage, the U.S. State Department's new ambassador at large to combat human trafficking, says the traffickers often refer to their upbringing in court.
One of our defendants, when he was sentenced, his argument was, my dad was a pimp, my granddad was a pimp. At 13, I was told I was going to be a pimp. So that's what the town does. That's their industry.
When you come here, you immediately get the sense that there's something different about this town. As a matter of fact, authorities told us that they cannot guarantee our safety. And you get the idea that no matter who you are, if you're not from this town, you're not welcome here. We tried over the course of several months to speak with Tenancingo's mayor, even visiting his office upon first arriving in the town. We were denied and warned to stay close to the town square. By late afternoon, the tension we felt became more palpable. We'd been warned of the dangers journalists face in this town. 2 church officials approached. I tell her we came because we'd like to speak to the mayor about the issue of human trafficking.
Sí, pero hay de todo, señor. Aquí hay sacerdotes, hay de todo. Yo estoy escuchando lo que usted está hablando y no está. A nivel mundial, no.
She motions for a man with a knife to come over. Burn them, the young men behind us shout. It's time to go.
The driver says that he noticed that when we were leaving the town, there was a gray car that started following us, and they followed us for about 10 minutes.
As the town recedes into the rear view, there's a sinking feeling present among our crew. On this day, Tenancingo proved too dangerous, leaving the battle to protect girls like Estrella and Matilde from the evils of sex trafficking solely in the hands of Saint Michael and his army of angels.
And Mexican officials and anti-trafficking advocates told us some trafficking rings have moved their operations elsewhere because of the notoriety Tenancingo has gained in recent years. Still, they say, the town remains a hub for human trafficking. Michael, Emma?
Well, just an incredible story, and the fact that you were there and you can sense the danger, and the fact that the local authorities said to you that they cannot guarantee your safety, and this wasn't the only time that you were threatened.
Yeah, that's right. They called us into the mayor's office and they told us, listen, your presence here is making a lot of people very uncomfortable, so it's better for you to leave. And then one other time that we went, there was this man who stopped his car in the middle of traffic and started screaming at us. He was very furious and he said, I'm going to go get my gun. When I come back, you better don't be here, because if you are here, I'm going to shoot you and kill you all.
And well, you've got to ask the question, what about the cops?
Yeah.
Where are the cops?
In recent years, there's been operations in Tenancingo, but the problem is that it's so entrenched in the local culture. And both Mexican and U.S. officials told us that essentially the town is run by these trafficking rings, and so the option to dismantle everything is very, very difficult. And the problem is that it's not only this town, it's the region now that is seeing the same problem, and it's a pipeline for prostitutes, girls from Mexico, Central America, being trafficked to the United States. So it's not only Mexico, it's a regional problem now.
It's shocking that just how deep it goes, and it's generational too when you learn about, fathers teaching their sons and the sons teaching their sons to be pimps.
That this could happen in this day and age as well. It's medieval, it's unbelievable. Rafael, great reporting by you and the team.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Well, you're watching CNN Today. We're going to take a break. We'll be back after this.
We've recently discovered that there are about 35 million people in slavery around the world today. Now, slavery occurs almost any time that someone's made vulnerable and doesn't have the protection of the rule of law. If you want to understand the presence of slavery, you have to understand the presence of corruption in most countries.
We need leaders we can actually believe. Whether they're corporate, governmental, military, have an enormous responsibility. We're talking about people developing a higher level of consciousness than we've had up to now. Enabling humanity to actually evolve, because we have to.
When we all come together as leaders and people, elders and young, we can make the world the one we want, because no one is free as long as others are not. Let all of us come together to make the 21st century the century of humanity.